The morning rain had stopped just an hour ago, but the streets of downtown Portland still held that fresh, clean smell that comes after a good shower. Maya sat cross-legged on the cold sidewalk, her small fingers picking up the scattered beads that had spilled from their broken containers. Each tiny bead was like a small treasure to her, some blue like summer skies, others red like her grandmother's favorite roses. Next to her, Grandma Elena sat on a piece of cardboard, trying to hide the pain in her swollen hands. The old woman's eyes moved slowly across their overturned cart, taking in the damage. The wooden wheel that her late husband had carefully carved years ago now lay split in half, useless as a broken promise. "Grandma, I found the yellow ones," Maya whispered, holding up a small handful of golden beads. Her voice carried that special mix of sadness and hope that only children seem to master. Elena managed a weak smile, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes but tries its best to comfort. The cart had been their life for the past 6 months. Every morning they would load it with Elena's handmade jewelry, small wooden toys that smelled like pine, and the empanadas that had made Elena famous in their old neighborhood. The cart wasn't just wood and wheels to them. It was their hope, their daily bread, their way of staying together when everything else had fallen apart. Maya remembered the day they first brought the cart to this corner. She had been scared of all the tall buildings and rushing people, but Elena had squeezed her hand and said, "Don't worry, little bird. People here have good hearts. They just forgot how to slow down and show them." Now, as people walked past them without stopping, Maya wondered if her grandmother had been wrong. A businessman in an expensive suit stepped carefully around their scattered goods. His phone pressed to his ear as he talked about meetings and deadlines. A young mother pulled her toddler closer as they passed, whispering something about being late for daycare. Maya didn't understand why people seemed afraid to look at them. She and Elena weren't asking for anything. They just needed help getting their cart back on its wheels. But every person who passed seemed to have somewhere more important to be. The morning crowd was the worst. Everyone moved like they were running from something invisible, their faces set in serious expressions that Maya had learned meant, "Don't bother me." She watched as a woman in high heels carefully stepped around the spilled empanadas. Her nose wrinkled as if poverty might be something she could catch. "Grandma," Maya said quietly, "why don't they see us?" Elena's weathered hand found Maya's small one. The old woman's skin was rough from years of hard work, but her touch was still the softest thing Maya knew. "They see us, little bird. They're just scared of what they might feel if they stopped to help." Maya didn't understand what her grandmother meant, but she knew that Elena was usually right about people. Even when Maya couldn't see the good in someone, Elena would find it, like she was looking through special glasses that showed hidden kindness. The broken cart told a story that neither of them wanted to remember. Maya's parents had died in a car accident just 6 months ago, on a rainy night not much different from this morning. One day Maya had been a normal 8-year-old girl with her own room, her own toys and parents who tucked her in every night. The next day, she was living with Elena in a tiny apartment where the heater didn't always work, and dinner sometimes meant sharing one empanada between them. Elena had tried to keep making her jewelry and crafts from home, but the apartment building didn't allow small businesses. The cart had been Elena's idea, a way to take their little business to the streets where they could earn enough to keep food on the table. And maybe, just maybe, save enough for Maya to have some of the things other kids had. The wooden cart had been a gift from Elena's neighbor, an old man who had used it to sell flowers before his arthritis got too bad. Elena had spent weeks painting it bright blue and yellow, colors that reminded Maya of sunshine and clear skies. They had been so proud the first day they wheeled it out together, Maya skipping alongside as Elena pushed their mobile shop toward the busy downtown corner they had picked as their spot. For a while, things had been getting better. Elena's empanadas were becoming popular with the office workers who grabbed lunch from street vendors. Maya had made friends with some of the regular customers, including a kind security guard who always bought 2 empanadas and gave Maya the second one with a wink. But today, everything had gone wrong from the start. They had been setting up their usual display when a delivery truck had taken the corner too fast. The driver hadn't seen their cart, and his bumper had clipped their back wheel, sending everything tumbling to the wet pavement. The truck had driven away without stopping, leaving Maya and Elena to deal with the mess alone. Maya looked at the broken wheel again and felt tears starting to build behind her eyes. She was tired of being strong, tired of pretending that everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. She was 8 years old, but sometimes she felt much older, like she had to be the grown-up when Elena's hands hurt too much to work, or when the sadness about her parents made Elena forget to eat. The scattered beads caught the morning light, creating tiny rainbows on the wet concrete. Maya had always loved those beads. Elena had taught her how to sort them by color and size, how to string them into patterns that would catch a customer's eye. Now they were mixed with dirt and city grime, and Maya wasn't sure they would ever be beautiful again. A group of teenagers walked by, laughing about something on their phones. One of them accidentally kicked a small wooden toy, sending it rolling into the gutter. Maya watched it disappear down the storm drain and felt something break inside her chest, something that had been holding her together for months. Elena must have seen the look on Maya's face because she reached over and pulled her granddaughter close. Maya breathed in Elena's familiar smell, a mix of vanilla from her cooking and the lavender soap she used on her hands. It was a smell that meant safety, even when everything else felt uncertain. "We'll figure this out," Elena whispered into Maya's hair. "We always do." But Maya could hear the worry in her grandmother's voice, the same worry that kept Elena awake at night when she thought Maya was sleeping. Maya knew that Elena was trying to be brave for her, just like Maya tried to be brave for Elena. They were both pretending to be stronger than they felt, and sometimes that pretending was the hardest part of all. As the morning crowd continued to flow around them like water around a stone, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to wait for someone to notice them anymore. She was going to make them notice, but not in the way anyone expected. David Chen hurried down the sidewalk, his leather shoes clicking against the concrete in a rhythm that matched his racing heartbeat. The morning meeting that could make or break his career was starting in 15 minutes, and he was still 6 blocks away. His phone buzzed constantly in his hand. Emails from his boss, text messages from his assistant, reminders about presentations he hadn't finished preparing. He barely noticed the world around him as he walked. The smell of fresh coffee from street vendors, the sound of early morning traffic, the way the sunlight painted golden streaks across the building windows. None of it registered in his mind. All he could think about were the charts and graphs he needed to present, the questions his boss might ask, and the promotion that seemed to slip further away with each passing minute. David had been working toward this moment for 3 years. Every late night at the office, every missed dinner with friends, every weekend spent reviewing reports instead of relaxing, it had all been leading to this morning's presentation. His entire future felt like it hung on the next hour, and the pressure was crushing him from the inside. As he turned the corner onto 5th Street, David's phone rang. His boss's name flashed on the screen and his stomach dropped. He answered while still walking, trying to sound confident even though his palms were sweating. "Chen, where are you?" The voice on the other end was sharp, impatient. "Almost there, sir. Just 2 more blocks," David lied, picking up his pace. The client moved the meeting up by 10 minutes. They want to start now. David's heart sank. There was no way he could make it in time. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," he said, knowing it was impossible but hoping for a miracle. "You better be. This is too important to mess up." The phone went dead, leaving David alone with his panic. He started jogging, his expensive suit jacket flapping behind him as he dodged other pedestrians. His briefcase bounced against his leg with each step, and he could feel sweat starting to form on his forehead despite the cool morning air. That's when he saw the overturned cart. At first, it was just another obstacle to navigate around. David's eyes were focused on the street ahead, calculating the fastest route to his office building. But as he approached the broken cart, something made him glance down. A little girl sat on the sidewalk, carefully sorting colorful beads into small piles. Next to her, an elderly woman watched the morning crowd with tired eyes. The scene looked like something from a different world, a quiet, slow world that existed in sharp contrast to David's frantic rush. David tried to step around them, but his foot caught on something. He looked down and saw a small wooden toy, hand-carved and painted with bright colors. As he bent to move it aside, he heard a voice so soft he almost missed it. "Excuse me, mister." David looked up to see the little girl watching him. Her dark eyes were serious, older than they should have been for someone so young. There was something about her expression that made David pause, even though every instinct told him to keep running toward his meeting. "I'm sorry." I'm really in a hurry, David said, glancing at his watch. 4 minutes until the meeting was supposed to start, and he was still blocks away. The little girl stood up slowly, brushing dust from her worn jeans. David noticed that her clothes were clean but faded, the kind of careful cleanliness that comes from having very few options. She looked up at him with those serious eyes and took a small step forward. "We don't need food today," she said quietly. "Just a hug." The words hit David like a physical force. He stopped moving entirely, his phone forgotten in his hand, his meeting suddenly seeming very far away. In all his years of living in the city, walking past countless people asking for help, he had never heard a request like this one. David stared at the little girl, trying to process what she had just said. He had expected her to ask for money, maybe food, perhaps help fixing their broken cart. Those were requests he knew how to handle. A quick, "Sorry, I'm in a rush," and he could keep walking without feeling too guilty. But a hug? That was something completely different. The girl's grandmother watched the exchange with quiet dignity. David could see the story written in the lines of her face. Years of hard work, recent grief, the kind of tired that comes from carrying too much responsibility for too long. She didn't say anything, but her eyes held a mixture of hope and resignation that made David's chest feel tight. "A hug?" David repeated, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. Maya nodded, her small hands clasped in front of her. "We've been sitting here since early morning and everyone walks by like we're invisible. I know people are busy, but sometimes—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Sometimes it feels like nobody sees that we're real people too." David felt something crack open inside his chest. He looked at this little girl who couldn't be more than 8 years old, speaking with a wisdom that most adults never achieved. She wasn't asking for his wallet or his spare change. She was asking for the one thing that cost nothing but meant everything: human connection. Behind him, David could hear the sounds of the city continuing its relentless pace. Cars honked, people talked on phones, delivery trucks rumbled past. The world that had seemed so urgent just moments ago suddenly felt distant and hollow. Maya's words echoed in his mind. "Like we're invisible." David realized with a shock that he had been making people invisible his entire life. How many times had he walked past someone who needed help, too focused on his own problems to notice their humanity? "You've been here all morning?" David asked, crouching down so he was at Maya's eye level. "Since 6 o'clock, Maya said. Our cart broke and Grandma's hands hurt too much to fix it alone. But that's not why I asked for a hug." She looked directly into David's eyes. "I asked because you looked sad too, and sometimes when I'm sad, a hug makes everything feel a little bit better." David felt tears threatening behind his eyes. This child, sitting on a cold sidewalk with her broken cart and scattered belongings, was worried about him. She had looked at his expensive suit and stressed expression and seen past all of it to recognize a fellow human being who was struggling. His phone buzzed again, another call from his boss, probably wondering where he was. David looked at the screen for a moment, then made a decision that surprised him. He declined the call and put the phone in his pocket. "You're right," David said softly. "I am sad and scared, and I've been so worried about my own problems that I forgot to notice other people." He looked at Maya's hopeful face and felt something shift inside him. "I think a hug sounds like exactly what we both need." Maya's face lit up with the first real smile David had seen all morning. It was like watching the sun come out from behind clouds, transforming everything around it. Even Elena, who had been watching silently, seemed to straighten up a little. David opened his arms and Maya stepped forward without hesitation. As her small arms wrapped around his neck, David felt 3 years of stress and worry start to melt away. When was the last time someone had hugged him just because he needed it? When had he last stopped running long enough to let another person's kindness reach him? The hug lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like coming home after a very long journey. When Maya stepped back, David realized that something fundamental had changed. The meeting that had seemed so important was still happening somewhere across the city, but it no longer felt like the most important thing in the world. "Thank you," David said, and he meant it more than he had meant anything in a very long time. "Thank you too," Maya replied. "You give really good hugs," David laughed, a real laugh that seemed to surprise him with its warmth. As he knelt there on the sidewalk next to a broken cart and an 8-year-old girl who had just taught him more about life than 3 years of business school, David realized that he had just experienced the most important meeting of his career. David sat down on the sidewalk next to Maya, not caring that his expensive suit would get dirty from the still damp concrete. The morning rush continued around them, but somehow the noise seemed quieter now, less urgent. Maya smiled at him, and for the first time in months, David felt like he could breathe properly. "What happened to your cart?" David asked, looking at the broken wheel and scattered goods. Maya's face grew serious again. "A big truck hit it this morning when we were setting up. The driver didn't even stop to see if we were okay." She picked up a small wooden bird from the ground, one of Elena's hand-carved toys. Its bright red paint was chipped now, but Maya held it gently like it was made of precious gold. Elena cleared her throat softly. "I'm Elena," she said, her voice carrying a slight accent that spoke of places far from here. "This is my granddaughter, Maya. We're new to this kind of work." David could hear the pride fighting with embarrassment in Elena's voice. He understood that feeling, the struggle between needing help and wanting to maintain dignity. "I'm David," he said simply. "And you're not new to hard work, I can see that." Elena's weathered hand smoothed her worn dress. "I used to clean office buildings at night," she said quietly. "But when Maya came to live with me, I couldn't work those hours anymore. Someone needs to be home when she goes to sleep, you know." Maya leaned against her grandmother's shoulder. "Grandma makes the best empanadas in the whole world," she said with fierce loyalty. "And she taught me how to paint the wooden toys. We're a good team." David looked around at their scattered inventory. Handmade jewelry with intricate beadwork, small wooden animals painted in bright colors, and several foil-wrapped empanadas that had survived the morning's accident. Each item showed careful craftsmanship, the kind of attention to detail that came from hands that had worked with love for many years. "How long have you been selling here?" David asked. 6 months, Elena replied. "Since..." She glanced at Maya and didn't finish the sentence, but David understood. Since whatever had brought Maya to live with her grandmother. Maya seemed to sense the heavy moment and spoke up. "Grandma, show him the butterfly necklace, the one with the blue stones." Elena carefully lifted a delicate silver necklace from one of the scattered piles. The pendant was shaped like a butterfly, with tiny blue stones that caught the morning light. It was beautiful, clearly worth much more than anything David had expected to find at a street cart. "This is incredible," David said, meaning it. "You made this?" Elena nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "I learned jewelry making from my mother back in Guatemala. She always said that beautiful things help people remember there's still magic in the world." As they talked, David noticed that their small group was starting to attract attention. A young woman in scrubs, probably a nurse heading home from a night shift, had slowed down to watch them. She stood a few feet away, clearly curious about why a businessman in an expensive suit was sitting on the sidewalk with a grandmother and little girl. "That's really beautiful work," the nurse said, stepping closer to look at the butterfly necklace. "How much do you sell these for?" Elena named a price that was far too low for the quality of the piece. David could see that she had no idea of the real value of her craftsmanship. The nurse bought the necklace immediately, fastening it around her neck with obvious delight. "This will remind me of something beautiful after a hard night at the hospital," she said to Elena. "Thank you." Maya beamed as if she had made the sale herself. "Grandma makes a new design every week," she told the nurse proudly. More people began to slow down as they passed. There was something unusual about the scene. The businessman sitting on the ground, the little girl chattering happily to strangers, the grandmother's quiet dignity as she showed her wares to interested customers. It wasn't something you saw every day in the downtown rush. A construction worker on his lunch break stopped to examine the wooden toys. "My daughter would love this little horse," he said, picking up one of Maya's painted pieces. "Did you paint this yourself?" Maya nodded enthusiastically. "Grandma teaches me the colors that go together. This one is my favorite because I used sunset colors, orange and pink and purple." The man bought the wooden horse and 2 empanadas, sitting down on a nearby bench to eat them. "These are the best empanadas I've had since I visited my grandmother in Mexico," he called out to Elena. Elena's face glowed with pride. Maya clapped her hands together with joy. David watched the small crowd gathering around them and felt something powerful happening. It wasn't just that people were buying Elena's crafts, it was that they were actually seeing Elena and Maya as real people with stories worth hearing. A teenage girl with bright purple hair crouched down next to Maya. "I love your style," she said, admiring Maya's careful arrangement of the remaining beads. You have a really good eye for color. Maya blushed with pleasure. Want to help me sort them? We organize them by families. All the blues together, all the reds together. Like that. Soon the teenager was sitting cross-legged on the sidewalk, helping Maya create neat piles of beads while Elena told her about the different stones she used in her jewelry. An elderly man with a walking cane had stopped to watch, smiling at the impromptu community forming on the sidewalk. David pulled out his phone, but instead of checking his missed calls from work, he did something that surprised him. He took a photo of Maya and the purple-haired girl working together, their heads bent over the colorful beads. Something about the image felt important, like a moment worth remembering. Would it be okay if I shared this photo? David asked Elena. People should know about your beautiful work. Elena looked uncertain. Shared how? Social media, the purple-haired girl explained. It's a way to show pictures to lots of people on the internet. Don't worry, it's safe. Elena nodded slowly. David posted the photo with a simple caption. Sometimes the most beautiful things happen when we slow down long enough to really see each other. Within minutes, his phone started buzzing with notifications. People were sharing the photo, adding comments about the beauty of Elena's jewelry and Maya's bright smile. Someone recognized the street corner and said they would stop by tomorrow to see the crafts in person. David looked around at the small group that had gathered. The nurse was still there, touching her new necklace and talking to Elena about her experiences working at the hospital. The construction worker had bought 2 more empanadas to take home to his family. The teenager was teaching Maya how to make friendship bracelets with the sorted beads. This is amazing, David said to Maya. You did this. You made all of this happen. Maya looked puzzled. I didn't do anything special. I just asked for a hug. But David was beginning to understand that sometimes the simplest actions could create the biggest changes. Maya's request for human connection had broken through the invisible walls that usually kept strangers separate in the busy city. It had reminded everyone, including David, that behind every rushing person was someone who needed to feel seen and valued. The broken cart still lay on its side, but somehow it didn't seem like the disaster it had been that morning. The scattered goods had become conversation starters. The interrupted routine had become an opportunity for genuine human connection. David looked at his phone and saw 7 missed calls from his office. The important meeting had ended an hour ago. In any other situation, he would have been panicking about his career, about the promotion he had probably lost, about explaining to his boss why he had disappeared. But sitting on the sidewalk with Maya's laughter filling the air and Elena's proud smile lighting up her face, David realized he had found something much more valuable than any promotion. He had found his way back to the part of himself that remembered how to connect with other people. Maya tugged on his sleeve. David, do you want to learn how to paint the wooden birds? Grandma says I'm a good teacher. David smiled, really smiled, for what felt like the first time in years. I would love that, Maya. I think I have a lot to learn. By noon, the sidewalk corner where Maya and Elena's cart had broken down looked completely different. What had started as a small gathering of curious strangers had grown into something that resembled a neighborhood block party. The purple-haired teenager, whose name was Zoe, had called 3 of her friends to come see the coolest grandma and kid ever. The construction worker, Tony, had returned with a toolbox borrowed from his job site. Let's see if we can fix this wheel, Tony said, kneeling down next to the broken cart. He examined the split wood with the careful attention of someone who had spent years working with his hands. It's cracked pretty bad, but I think we can save it. David found himself holding the cart steady while Tony worked, completely forgetting that he was supposed to be in an office somewhere, explaining to his boss why he had missed the most important meeting of his career. Every few minutes, his phone would buzz with another notification from the photo he had shared, but the messages weren't angry demands from his workplace. Instead, they were comments from strangers who had been touched by the simple image of people helping each other. Maya watched Tony work with fascination. How did you learn to fix things? She asked. My grandfather taught me, Tony said, using sandpaper to smooth the rough edges of the wood. He always said that being able to fix things was one of the most useful skills a person could have. Not just broken objects, but broken situations, too. Elena nodded approvingly. Smart man, your grandfather. He would have liked you, Tony replied with a smile. He always said the best people were the ones who made beautiful things with their hands. Zoe looked up from her phone where she had been scrolling through the comments on David's photo. "This is crazy," she said. "Your picture has been shared over 1,000 times already. People are calling it the hug that started a movement." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, settling down next to Zoe to look at the screen. "See? Someone wrote this hashtag, why just a hug, and now everyone is sharing stories about times when they needed human connection instead of money or things." Zoe scrolled through the comments, reading some of them out loud. "This woman says her teenage son has been really sad lately, and reading your story reminded her to hug him more. And this man says he's going to stop walking past homeless people without acknowledging them." Elena looked confused. "But we're not homeless," she said gently. "I know," Zoe replied. "But I think people are understanding the bigger message, that everyone deserves to be seen and treated with kindness no matter what their situation looks like." David felt a strange mixture of pride and disbelief as he listened to Zoe read the comments. His simple photo had somehow touched something deep in people, reminding them of their shared humanity. The image of Maya sorting beads while a stranger helped her had become a symbol of hope in a world that often felt too busy and disconnected. A woman in a business suit approached their growing group, looking slightly nervous but determined. "Excuse me," she said to Elena. "Are you the artist whose jewelry everyone is talking about online?" Elena nodded, still not quite understanding how her small sidewalk display had become the center of so much attention. "I'm the principal of Roosevelt Elementary School," the woman continued. "I saw the story about your granddaughter, and I wanted to talk to you about something important." Maya looked up from the phone screen, suddenly interested in the conversation. "Maya should be in school," the principal said kindly. "I know situations can be complicated, but every child deserves a proper education. We have programs that can help families like yours. Free breakfast and lunch, after-school care, even help with school supplies." Elena's face flushed. "I know she should be in school," she said quietly, "but I can't afford daycare and I can't leave her alone while I work. What if I told you that we have a solution for that?" The principal asked. "We have a program where students can stay at school until 6 o'clock. Maya could do her homework, participate in art classes, and play with other children her age, and it's completely free for families who qualify." Maya's eyes grew wide. "Real school? With other kids in art class?" The principal smiled. "Real school. And from what I can see of your artwork here, I think you'd love our art program. We have painting, sculpting, even jewelry making." Elena looked overwhelmed, as if she couldn't quite believe that such help was being offered freely and without judgment. "But what about our cart, our work?" "I still need to earn money to pay rent and buy food." Another voice joined the conversation. "Maybe I can help with that." Everyone turned to see a middle-aged man with kind eyes and calloused hands. He wore a flannel shirt and jeans and carried himself with the confidence of someone who was used to solving problems. "I'm Pete Rodriguez," he said. "I own the weekend farmers market about 6 blocks from here. I've been watching what's happening here today, and I'm impressed by the quality of your crafts and the way you treat people." Elena's eyes brightened with interest. "I have a permanent stall available," Pete continued. "It's covered so you don't have to worry about rain. It's got electricity for lighting, and it's in a busy section where lots of people walk by. The rental fee is reasonable, and I think you do really well there." "But the cart," Elena said, looking at their broken wooden display. "We don't have a way to transport everything." Tony looked up from his repair work. "Actually, I think we do now." He stepped back to reveal the cart wheel, which looked almost as good as new. "It's not pretty, but it's solid. This cart will roll again." Maya clapped her hands with delight. "You fixed it. You really fixed it." But Tony wasn't finished. "I was thinking, though, if you're going to be selling at the farmer's market regularly, you might want something a little bigger. My brother runs a small carpentry shop, and he's always looking for community projects. I bet he'd be willing to build you a proper display cart, maybe with drawers for the jewelry and shelves for the wooden toys." Elena looked around at all the faces watching her with genuine kindness and felt tears starting to form in her eyes. 6 hours ago, she and Maya had been alone with their broken cart and scattered dreams. Now they were surrounded by people offering real, practical help that could change their lives. David's phone rang, and he saw his boss's name on the screen. For a moment he hesitated. Then he looked at Maya, who was carefully explaining the different types of beads to the school principal, and at Elena, who was discussing market schedules with Pete. This moment felt too important to interrupt with work problems. He declined the call and put his phone away. "David," Maya said, tugging on his sleeve. Are you in trouble for missing your meeting? David considered the question seriously. By any practical measure, yes, he was probably in significant trouble at work. But looking at the community that had formed around this broken cart, at the genuine connections being made between strangers, at the hope returning to Elena's eyes and the excitement building in Maya's voice, he realized that trouble might be worth it. Maybe, he said honestly. But you know what? Some things are more important than meetings. Maya nodded as if this made perfect sense to her. Like hugs, she said. Like hugs, David agreed. The afternoon sun was getting stronger and more people continued to stop by their impromptu gathering. Someone had brought a thermos of coffee to share. Another person had arrived with sandwiches for anyone who was hungry. A local reporter had heard about the hashtag trending online and had come to ask Elena and Maya about their story. We never expected anything like this, Elena told the reporter. Maya just asked for a hug and somehow that small request touched people's hearts. Maya, who was getting more comfortable with all the attention, added her own perspective. I think people forget sometimes that everyone needs kindness. When we're sad or scared, a hug helps us remember that we're not alone. The reporter smiled as she took notes. And what would you want to tell other people who might be reading your story? Maya thought for a moment, her small face serious with concentration. I'd tell them that it's okay to ask for help, even if it's just a hug. And I'd tell them to notice other people who might need help too, because when people help each other, everything gets better. As the day continued, Elena sold more jewelry and wooden toys than she had in the previous month combined. But more than that, she had found a community of people who saw her and Maya as valuable members of society, deserving of respect and support. David looked around at the scene and realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. One little girl's simple request for human connection had created a ripple effect that was spreading far beyond this street corner, reminding people throughout the city about the power of kindness and the importance of really seeing each other. 3 months later, Maya bounced up the front steps of Roosevelt Elementary School with her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Her dark hair was pulled back in 2 neat braids that Elena had taught her to do herself, and her school uniform was crisp and clean. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They sparkled with the confidence of a child who knew she belonged somewhere. Maya. Over here, called her friend Ashley from across the playground. Maya waved and ran toward the group of kids who had become her closest friends. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago, she had been sitting on a cold sidewalk, sorting scattered beads and wondering if anyone would ever really see her. Inside the school's art classroom, Maya's latest painting hung on the wall of honor, a colorful scene showing people helping each other on a busy street. Her art teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had told the whole class that Maya had a special gift for showing emotions through colors. Maya always painted with bright, warm colors now, nothing like the sad grays and blues she had used when she first started school. Today we're going to work on our community project, Mrs. Patterson announced as the students settled into their seats. Remember, we're creating artwork to display at the farmer's market this weekend. Maya's hand shot up immediately. Can I make something for my grandmother's booth? She's going to be there selling her jewelry. Mrs. Patterson smiled. Everyone in the class knew about Maya's grandmother and their famous story. The local newspaper had done a follow-up article about them last month, showing how Elena's business had grown and how Maya was thriving in school. After school, Maya walked the 6 blocks to the farmer's market where Elena now had a permanent covered stall. The walk had become Maya's favorite part of the day. She knew all the shop owners along the route and many of them would wave or call out greetings as she passed. There's our little artist, called out Mr. Kim from his flower stand. How was school today? We're making art for the market, Maya called back. I'm painting a sign for Grandma's booth. Elena's stall was busy when Maya arrived. A steady stream of customers browsed the jewelry displays that Tony's brother had built. Beautiful wooden cases with glass tops that showed off Elena's intricate work perfectly. The new setup was a far cry from their old wooden cart, but Elena had insisted on keeping one small section that displayed a few items on the original cart top. It served as a reminder of how far they had come. Maya. Elena's face lit up as she saw her granddaughter approach. Perfect timing, Mrs. Chen. From the bank wants to commission a special necklace for her daughter's graduation. Maya listened carefully as Elena discussed the custom piece with Mrs. Chen. Over the past few months, Maya had learned so much about her grandmother's craft. She could now identify different types of stones and knew which colors worked best together. Elena had even started teaching her some basic jewelry-making techniques. When Mrs. Chen left with her order form, Elena turned to Maya with a proud smile. "How was school today, little bird?" "Amazing. We're doing multiplication tables now, and I got all of them right. And in art class, we're making things for the market." Maya pulled out a rough sketch from her backpack. "I want to paint a sign that says Elena's treasures made with love. Is that okay?" Elena's eyes grew misty. "That's perfect, Maya. Absolutely perfect." As they worked together arranging the jewelry display, Maya chatted about her day at school. Elena loved hearing about Maya's friends, her teachers, and all the new things she was learning. Sometimes Elena still couldn't believe how much their lives had changed since that morning when their cart had broken down. "Grandma, look." Maya pointed toward the market entrance where a familiar figure was walking toward them. David approached their stall with a big smile on his face. He had become a regular visitor to the farmer's market, usually stopping by on Saturday afternoons to see how Elena and Maya were doing. But he looked different today, more relaxed, less rushed than he used to be. "How are my favorite entrepreneurs doing?" David asked, giving Maya a hug that had become their traditional greeting. "Business is good," Elena replied. "And Maya got perfect scores on her math test this week." David high-fived Maya with exaggerated enthusiasm. "That's fantastic. I knew you were brilliant. How's your new job?" Maya asked. David had left his old company 2 weeks after their first meeting. The day he missed his important meeting had led to a conversation with his boss that made him realize he wasn't happy with the pressure and stress of his previous position. "I love it," David said honestly. "Teaching business classes at the community college is so much more rewarding than what I used to do. And I get to help people like your grandmother learn about marketing and business planning." Elena nodded gratefully. David had been volunteering his time to help her understand the business side of her craft. He had taught her how to price her jewelry fairly, how to keep track of expenses and profits, and how to plan for the future. Elena's business skills had improved dramatically, and her income had grown accordingly. "Did you see the article about us in the Sunday paper?" Maya asked excitedly. David had indeed seen it. The story was about how the Clanry Just a Hug movement had inspired similar acts of kindness throughout the city. People were sharing stories of small gestures that had made big differences in their lives. Community groups had formed to help local families in need. Schools were teaching children about the importance of empathy and human connection. "You started something really special," David told Maya. "People all over the city are being kinder to each other because of what you did." Maya looked thoughtful. "I didn't really do anything special, though. I just asked for what I needed." "That's exactly what made it special," Elena said, reaching over to smooth Maya's hair. "You were brave enough to ask for kindness when you needed it most." As the afternoon wore on, the market became busier. Elena's jewelry continued to sell well, and several customers mentioned that they had heard about her story online. A young couple bought matching bracelets for their anniversary, saying they wanted to support a business that represented love and community. Maya helped by demonstrating how some of the jewelry was made, showing customers the different types of beads and explaining which ones were her favorites. She had become quite the little saleswoman, with a natural ability to make people smile and feel comfortable. Near closing time, Pete Rodriguez stopped by their stall. As the market owner, he made regular rounds to check on all his vendors, but he had a special fondness for Elena and Maya. "How did today go?" Pete asked. "Very well," Elena replied. "Maya sold 3 of her painted wooden birds, and I had 2 custom jewelry orders." Pete nodded approvingly. "You know, I've been thinking about expanding the market to include a section for local artists and craftspeople. Would you be interested in helping me organize it? You could teach jewelry making workshops, and Maya could help with children's art classes." Elena's eyes widened with excitement. The idea of teaching others her craft, of sharing the skills her mother had passed down to her, filled her with joy. "We would love that," Elena said. As they packed up their stall at the end of the day, Maya looked at the old cart top that still held a few pieces of jewelry. "Grandma, do you ever miss how things used to be? Before that day when the cart broke?" Elena considered the question carefully. "I miss your parents every single day," she said honestly. "And I wish we didn't have to go through such hard times. But I don't miss the worry and fear we used to feel." I don't miss feeling invisible, Maya nodded. I like our life now. I like having friends at school and knowing you're happy when I come home. You know what I like most? Elena asked. What? I like that you still give the best hugs in the world, and now you share them with so many people. Maya grinned and threw her arms around her grandmother. As they embraced in their market stall, surrounded by the beautiful things Elena's hands had created and the life they had built together, Maya remembered that morning when she had asked a rushing stranger for a simple hug. She had learned that sometimes the smallest requests could create the biggest changes. More importantly, she had learned that everyone deserved to be seen, to be valued, and to be loved. The broken cart that had brought them so much trouble had become a symbol of their journey. It reminded them that even when things seemed hopeless, kindness could rebuild what was broken and create something even more beautiful than what had been lost. That evening, as Maya did her homework at their small kitchen table while Elena prepared dinner, both of them knew they were exactly where they belonged. They had found their place in the world, not by asking for money or charity, but by asking for the one thing that connects all human beings: simple, honest, loving kindness. And somewhere across the city, David was grading papers from his community college students, still wearing the small wooden bird pin that Maya had made for him as a thank you gift. Every time he looked at it, he remembered the little girl who had taught him that the most important things in life couldn't be scheduled into a business meeting or measured in quarterly reports. They could only be found in moments of genuine human connection, one hug at a time.